On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the middleweight title fight headlining UFC 312 between champion Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland. My name is James Lynch. If you've never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles. Then I'm going to give you my prediction for this fight at the end. Let me know in the comments where you're leaning on this fight. I want to get a prediction from you, not just a pick. We can discuss that in the comments, but let's, like we always do a quick tail of the tape of this one. Dricus Du Plessis, 31 years old, 33 for Sean Strickland, 6'1" apiece, 76 apiece, so physically very similar. Even like experience-wise, like they have a similar amount of fights, and not a huge age gap either, just 2 years younger for Dricus Du Plessis. And we're going to start with him first, Still Knox, and talk about what he's been up to in the division. So the current middleweight champion, like I mentioned there, he is 22-2. And when it comes to, everything when it comes to DDP, it's, always an entertaining fight. One of the most unorthodox fighters we've seen in terms of the way he fights. He always looks like he's tired and he's going to gas out, but then, he still wins fights. I mentioned this is a 5-round main event. This is going to be taking place at the Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney, Australia. So DDP, like I mentioned, 22-2. He's got 9 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 2 decisions. He'll be 2 years younger than Sean Strickland. He's got a second-degree black belt in kickboxing. He's the former EFC middleweight and welterweight champion. He's the current middleweight champion of the UFC. He's had 1 successful title defense. He's the first South African to win a UFC championship. He's got performance of the night 2 times against Trevin Giles and Robert Whittaker. He's got fight of the night 2 times against Darren Till and Sean Strickland. He's got the second most significant strikes landed per minute in UFC middleweight division history at 6.18. He's also tied with Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero for 4th longest win streak in middleweight division history at 8. Du Plessis did not have an amateur debut. He went straight to the pros in July of 2013, made his UFC debut in October of 2020. But keep in mind, he fought for some pretty good promotions over there in KSW and EFC. He is 8-0 in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just quickly add this up. I think I might have missed that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I was right. 8-0 in the UFC. He's got 5 stoppage wins. Some notable wins include Brad Tavares, who was ranked at the time, Darren Till. Actually, I don't think Tavares was ranked at the time, but he has been ranked before, is the point I'm making. He's also beat Darren Till, Derek Brunson, Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland, and most recently Israel Adesanya. He has never lost in the UFC, and he's only the 3rd fighter in the UFC's middleweight division to finish Robert Whittaker, which is a good feat. I know Whittaker got finished in his last fight, but at the time when he finished him, there was only one other guy who did it, and that was Israel Adesanya. And think of the guys that Whittaker's been in there with Yoel Romero, Darren Till, guys with a lot of finishing ability. Du Plessis had a bunch of layoffs in his career. We're going to quickly go through these. Some of these are visa-related, injury-related. So going from Marcus Perez to Trevin Giles, there was a 273-day layoff. Going from Giles to Brad Tavares, there was a 357-day layoff. Going from Whittaker to Strickland, there was the first Strickland fight, there was a 196-day layoff. Going from Strickland to Adesanya, there was a 210-day layoff, and then going from Adesanya to Strickland, there'll be a 175-day layoff. So not a major layoff for him going into this fight. He's been pretty active overall, especially since becoming champion. He's fought in multiple weight classes. He's fought 18 times at middleweight, 4 times at welterweight, and he's had a catchweight 1 time of 176. He's only had the 1 close fight against Strickland. We might as well go through it right now. That was at UFC UFC 297. I was actually at that card. That was in Toronto. And let's go look at the media scorecards for that one. Because a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, a bunch of Sean Strickland fans, let's put it that way, call that fight a robbery. I don't think it was a robbery. I think it was a very close fight. To me, a robbery is where you don't win a single round. And I certainly think Du Plessis won some of the rounds. I actually went back and watched this fight. And just to give you guys some insight here, I actually scored. Actually, we'll even look at the stats here for that fight, just to give people an idea of their first fight. So Du Plessis winning. And if you look at the significant strikes, it kind of lines up with how I scored this fight. So I gave round 1 to Strickland, gave round 2 to DDP, gave round 3 to DDP, gave round 4 to DDP, and I gave round 5 to Strickland. It's actually interesting because Strickland outlanded him in those rounds that I scored him for. The other ones were fairly close, like they were super even. Again, this is why it's not a robbery, because again, these rounds, look at these significant strikes, and this isn't the be-all end-all. But if you look at it there, round 2, 3, 4, very close rounds in terms of striking and all that. If you look at overall strikes, Strickland did land more. He landed 173 compared to 137, so he did land more than DDP, but still, with that said, I still think that DDP ended up winning it. But again, I'm here. That's why they're doing the rematch, because we're going to find out once and for all who the better fighter is in this spot. So again, close fight. I had it 3-2 for DDP. Let's look at DDP's stats, though. Have a quick gander at what he's up to. Look at this. Significant strikes landed per minute, 6.18. That's very high. Striking accuracy is at 49%. Striking defense is at 54%, so he does get hit a bit. Takedown average 3.04. His takedown accuracy is at 50%, and his takedown defense is at 50% as well. His sub average is 0.09, but he's coming off a huge sub win over Israel Adesanya in his last fight. So you can see it there. Dricus Du Plessis, one of a kind fighter. There's really no one like him, right? If you think about what he does, how he fights, how he wins fights, it's pretty incredible. So that's everything you need to know about Dricus Du Plessis. Now let's talk about his opponent, Sean Strickland, who's getting this opportunity at the title. So you can see Strickland currently ranked number 1 in the middleweight division. Like I mentioned, 33 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. So he'll have a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's a BJJ brown belt. He trains out of Extreme Couture. He was the former middleweight champion. Got fight of the night 1 time in his career against Dricus Du Plessis. Got performance of the night 3 times against Brendan Allen, Abus Magomedov, and Israel Adesanya. Did not have an amateur debut. Went straight to the pros in March of 2008. So if you can see there, he started MMA a lot earlier than DDP did. His UFC debut was in March of 2014, where he defeated Bubba McDaniel. He is 16-6 in the UFC. He's got 5 stoppage wins. Some notable wins for him include Brendan Allen, Jack Hermanson, Nasruddin Imavov, Israel Adesanya, and Paulo Costa. Some notable losses. They're mainly at welterweight. Santiago Ponzinibbio, Kamaru Usman, Zaleski, who's been, I think, ranked at one point, or actually, I don't think Zaleski has been ranked, but could be wrong about that. And then obviously at middleweight, he got finished by Alex Pereira, lost a close fight to Jared Cannonier, and then also lost to DDP as well. So he's been in there with some of the best. And then he's had a bunch of layoffs, just like DDP has. We'll go to the more recent ones. Coming from Paulo Costa, this fight, there will be a 252-day layoff. The big layoff he had, obviously, was the motorcycle accident. If we go back a couple of years ago, going from Nordine Taleb to Jack Marshman, there was a 735-day layoff there. So, most of the time, though, Strickland pretty active. Did wait out a little bit for this title shot, but it ended up paying off. Now, I mentioned he's had some close fights. We're not going to go through all of them, but the one that people always look to, there's 2. Obviously, there's the Jared Cannonier fight, which people felt like he won. And if you go look at the media scorecards for that one, 13 media members scored the fight for Cannonier, 7 scored it for Strickland. And then let's go to DDP and Strickland. You can see there, it is split down the middle. So you can see a lot of media members scored the fight 48-47 for Strickland, while a lot of other people scored it for DDP. More people scored it for DDP, but you can see that it certainly was a close fight. Again, I don't think it was a robbery there. Let's look at the stats for Sean Strickland in his career. His significant strikes landed per minute is also very high, 6.01. His striking accuracy is 42%, so it's a little bit lower there. And then if you look at his striking defense, 61%. So that's one thing with Strickland. People call him boring and everything, but he's a very good defensively minded fighter. Doesn't get hit a ton, hasn't taken a ton of damage. His takedown average is 0.78. His takedown accuracy is at 64%, and his takedown defense is 77%. Well, I don't know if this fight will hit the mat in this spot. And then if we look at the betting odds right now, you can see most books having Dricus almost a 2-1. Well, they do have him as a 2-1 favorite on some books. A little bit lower than that on DraftKings overall in terms of the odds. And then on Tapology, similar story here. See most people picking DDP 78% to 22. Okay, this is going to be a good fight. I know, again, there's a lot of people who think that Strickland's boring. I mean, I don't know. I didn't find the Israel Adesanya fight that boring. I thought this last fight was not that boring. It was more of like a chess match. I'll just give you my prediction, then I'll explain why in a second. I think DDP retains. Now, a couple of reasons for that. I do think this is one of the hardest fights to call because I could see Strickland coming out and having more success, because he had some success in that last fight. Like I said, he outstruck DDP in this fight. And one thing we got to remember as well, too, and trust me, I think that Israel Adesanya is a better striker than Sean Strickland is. Adesanya was doing quite well on the feet with DDP. It was only when DDP was able to get those takedowns that he eventually got the second one and then was able to submit Adesanya. I don't think he'll be able to do that to Sean Strickland. So that's kind of why I'm leaning decision as opposed to going with the stoppage win for DDP. So just getting in my notes here. Where are we? Sorry, guys. Losing track of things here. So Strickland's only been finished once at 185. That's another thing to kind of keep in mind. He's pretty, like I said, he doesn't get hit a lot. He's pretty durable. And how did he lose that fight? He decided to stand and trade with Alex Pereira, which is just not a good move when it comes to fighting Alex Pereira. So there's that. Strickland, you can see, has never been submitted in his career. It's possible it could happen here, but in general, I think Strickland's got a pretty good ground game. He's also tough to take down. Strickland's not much of a finisher, so I don't think like DDP has to worry about because DDP does get hit a bit, but Strickland doesn't have like one punch knockout power. He's not a guy that's really really threatening that way. He did rock Izzy in their fight, but that you don't really typically see that from Strickland. DDP also hasn't been knocked out since 2018. He's also pretty durable himself. Even Adesanya wasn't able to finish DDP in their fight. And again, like I think DDP, I think like I said, on paper, I think this fight's super close. Where I give the difference is, DDP is got like a little bit more, like he's able to finish an Adesanya where Strickland couldn't. Like there's that little extra that DDP has, and that's where I see him potentially winning here again with, maybe landing better shots or, maybe being more active or getting more takedowns or things like that. So I think it's going to be like a game of inches. I think you play the over, and I think you play the fight goes the distance again. Like I just don't see a finish in this fight. I think be safe that way. That way, if you're on the Strickland side and it doesn't go your way, you're not going to lose a ton of money because again, you bet the prop there. So that's kind of where I'm leaning here. I think DDP wins the decision. I think it'll be a little bit more decisive this time, but again, you never know. I do see this being super tough to pick, but ultimately I do have to go with DDP just with the way he has been performing. So he's going to be my pick by decision in the main event of UFC 312, which is not a great card. Let me know your prediction in the comments below. How do you see this one going? Just want to get your prediction. We can discuss this in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you hit that like button on this video. Really helps out the algorithm big time. If there's any other fights you want me to preview that are coming up, maybe not obvious ones, just let me know in the comments. I'm always open to new suggestions for fights, but I typically grab, main events, title fights, things like that. So just keep that in mind. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.